Earle Dresner is our DOP. He is an incredible combination of a beautiful creative, absolutely incredible aesthetic, and an incredible problem solver.
The beautiful thing about this film was that I had a lot of time to work with Seth. His ideas are bold and strong, and he doesn't kind of go half-hearted, so we wanted things to feel oppressive, to feel claustrophobic, to feel, moody and dark and difficult and gritty, and even to the point of not making people look beautiful, let them be sweaty and shiny or whatever they needed to be. Colour was really important as well. We wanted to stay away from green because green is obviously not present in this time. We talked a lot about different colours, and one of the approaches that we took was trying to make it all feel really artificial. The sun's coming through hazy, smoky, oily clouds. The colours of the street are neon and LED. The biggest thing for me on this film, which I've been really, really thrilled about, is the pre-production and the amount of time I got to spend with Seth and with Jack, the production designer, being able to spend hours and days and even weeks sitting in a room, going through everything, with storyboards, with 3D diagrams of sets, and being able to work through that process so carefully allowed me to walk onto set on the first day of shooting, really, really knowing what the goal was, what the focus was, and what we were trying to achieve.
Storyboarding is a really important part of my process. I come from a visual effects background, I'm a very visual storyteller. To me, the most valuable time that you have is when you're on set shooting, right? And all the planning, there might be 10 years that goes into designing and planning a movie, and then you have a few weeks of pre-production of everybody getting on the same page. Then when you hit the go button, you turn the camera on, you get one moment. So for me, storyboards basically just enable everybody to turn up on the day and know exactly what it is that you're trying to get to.
This film is a massive undertaking for the art department, and Jack Leong, the production designer, has done an incredible job pulling all that together. I've spent a lot of time in pre talking to her about practical lighting, about sets, about colours, and one of my big goals on this film was to try and introduce as much prac lighting into the sets as we possibly could. It adds to the effect of having that artificial world. So we've incorporated a huge amount of LEDs, over 200 metres of LED into different sets.
Jacinta, our amazing production designer, came onto the film 2 years ago and has basically not stopped since.
I've worked with Seth, Larney, our director, and Earle Dresner, our cinematographer, to achieve a look for this entire film. I've been able to generate drawings and have a team of concept illustrators map out the look. From there, we get the sets constructed. We started with very little colour because we wanted to sell that feeling of oppression and dystopia.
Green in the film, it's a very important colour because in the world of 2067, there's no trees.
Within this desaturated and muted colour palette of the city, we introduce green quite subtly.
For the people that are really keen observers, Xanthi, who represents the organic nature of life and this evolution of the person that Ethan needs to become, there's a moment in the first act of the film where she's painting, and she's only painting with red and blue, and she takes one little piece of green paint on her finger and she wipes it on his face. And you just see it for only a moment in the film. Maybe people won't notice, but it's this subtext of her giving him the gift of green, of trees, of nature.
Jude, my character, we call him sort of tunnel rats. Myself and Ethan, we're down there, and I imagine that he would have sort of cut off some cables at one point, and in doing so perhaps sort of electrocuted himself, and he kept the ones that sort of didn't electrocute him, obviously kill him, but he's kept them and he sort of turned them into a band. And so, I don't know if you can see that, Matt, but look at that, like the level of sort of detail that this guy's gone to. And just to sort of, that kind of stuff. It's just small little details that whether you do or do not see. They got an actor turning up asking for like a bracelet made out of cables, and yeah, sure, we'll make it happen. It's just unbelievable.
It's been amazing, I think, coming to South Australia. One of the first attractions was the studio. The locations we found in South Australia were also incredible. There's just so much diversity in South Australia and in Adelaide that you can find almost anything.
One of the locations here in Adelaide was Port Adelaide, which we converted into a shanty town. Seth took a photo, which was his master shot. Then I asked a couple of concept illustrators to paint over that photo and create a desperate, desolate, depressing world of 2067.
We managed to get a street lockdown in Port Adelaide, and the art department did an incredible job of dressing it. Now, we lit it up, it was over 100 metres of street that we had people walking down. And that's not easy to do in a lot of cities in Australia, so to have the opportunity to close that street down for 2 or 3 days and to dress it and light it and really set up our world with flying cars and explosions was a fantastic thing to be able to do.
We tested a few different lenses and we ended up on the Panavision C-Series Anamorphics, which I believe the first Star Wars movie was filmed on. The Panavision C-Series have this beautiful aesthetic that we associate with the classic movies from the 70s and the 80s, and especially the sorts of movies that I grew up on. I wanted the film to have this kind of uneasy characteristic to it where it's just a subtext, it's really just tone. There's no lines in those lenses that are straight. Everything's a little bit bent. When things are out of focus, they go a little bit kind of distorted and things like that. And to me, just from a story standpoint, it really adds this sense of tension.
They were made in the 60s, they have a huge amount of character, and you know, they do some funny things at times, but they're beautiful. You know, they're soft in places and sharp in places, and they flare really interestingly, but they also photograph a face really beautifully as well.